Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast. I am one half of this dynamic duo. I am your host, Mike Mercado, with the one, the only, the other half of this duo, 1/3 of the Trios champion, Everitt O'Neal. What's up, E-Train?
Michelangelo, it is so good to be back.
Good with a T, my friend. It is wonderful to have you back in the Mercado Airwaves studios for another edition of the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast. And it has been a really fun few weeks. We've had some really interesting conversations. You sent me a text message, though, a few days ago as we were doing some pre-production fighting, and you came up with a wonderful topic that really just... it encompasses so much of not just this podcast, but even the Good Brothers, Sports from the Couch, the Gone Missing podcast, because all of this is almost under the same realm now as pop culture. So what did you come up with?
I came up with the stigma of being a nerd. And you know, like you said, in the whole Mercadoverse that we are operating under, I just made that up.
I like it. Trademark it.
The Mercadoverse.
The Mercadoverse.
I mean, whether it's Two Nerds of a Feather, the Good Brothers, Sports from the Couch, even, you know, the fine ladies of Gone Missing, you know, it's all dealing with topics that we are deeply passionate about, thus making us nerds. But in particular, the kind of nerdom we're talking about, I guess, is the stereotypical depiction of nerds. And it was inspired by the most recent Monday Night Raw. We have the current storyline happening with Kofi Kingston and Bobby Lashley, and Bobby kind of made a reference to Kofi's tag team partner Xavier Woods, Austin Creed on Up Up Down Down.
Shout out.
And you know, made the little dig of him being, you know, kind of the nerd and, you know, video game player, and then, you know, he's a little smaller. He was the smallest of the trio in New Day.
Which is funny because he's still a thick boy, like a huge athlete. Like, that's how big these other dudes are.
Which also plays into, you know, the whole topic at hand about, you know, the depiction and stigma of nerds. And, you know, Woods, to his merit, even though, like, it's wrestling and it's all worked and stuff like that, you know, he went down his list of accolades of, you know, what he's done, and, you know, considered himself a Renaissance man, and, you know, kind of took a dig at Lashley and MVP, who comes from that older generation in the locker room, where, you know, you even heard Undertaker talk about how people were coming in with, you know, guns and stuff like that. And so they've gone from pistols to PlayStations in the locker room. And I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but
it's society. It's just, it's the way society changed. And I was really fascinated. I was really happy that you came up with this subject matter, because there's just so much that we could talk about it, because we've seen so much bad from fandom, from fanatics, essentially. You know, we've seen John Lennon get shot. We've seen, you know, we've seen the president get shot because they wanted from, I'm forgetting her name, but from Silence of the Lambs. So it's like we've seen in history these things just kind of happen. And fandom and nerddom, I think, are almost two different things now. I think what's fascinating about the word nerd is, we were talking about the Mercado universe, what you say?
Oh, the Mercadoverse?
The Mercadoverse. Everything is trademarked. Everything now is monetized. And I think we've gotten to the point now where, what is a nerd? Like, what is a stereotypical nerd? If we were talking in the 70s, look at, like, Porky's. Look at those type of movies. That was a nerd.
Yeah.
Look at them, like Superbad. Those are what nerds. And then at one point, Sony Pictures wanted to tell you that Andrew Garfield was a nerd. It's like, these are things that you think about it. Like, what is that term? I think, and then you start looking at people who got bullied at one point because of nerdom. You know, right now, you could walk into a high school wearing a luchador, you know, button-up T-shirt, and people are like, "Hey, that's a dope T-shirt." You wore that in 2008, and that's only, what, 12 years ago?
Yeah,
whatever.
12 years
a little more than that. Like, you'll get mocked, you'll get ridiculed, you'll be called the F word, the R word. Like, there's a lot of things. That's how much society has changed, good or bad. I do think it's allowed. It's just allowed for money to be made for nerddom, good and bad. Now, I wonder what your thoughts are of, like, how people have started to take advantage of it. You know, the kids that were bullied aren't necessarily loving the pop culture nerddom that is kind of taken over, because now the jock is considered a nerd sometimes. Like, what are your thoughts of the way it's kind of evolved into that?
So it's definitely I want to make sure I'm using this term correctly. I'm pretty sure I'm not. I know it's not like a catch-22. I'll just abandon it for right now. But I can see the positives in it, where you are now starting to see different embodiments of nerds, where you could have, your muscular looking dude like, the mountain Haptor, strongest dude in the world, can deadlift 1,000 pounds, and has a gaming channel on YouTube where he streams himself. But then you have, the ones who probably looked like the Urkels and the Screeches, and who were ostracized as children, who probably feel a certain way because people who looked like him, or you even have now very attractive women who are, making a grift out of streaming themselves on Twitch. And like, for those who probably lived that culture, or
who are about it,
or who are just about it, might feel away because like you all were the ones, who probably made me feel shame for being this person, and I stayed this way in spite of you. But we all get older, and perhaps, I think the good thing about where we are today is that more people are giving themselves permission to really be who they probably were. So those jocks probably were into, gaming or D&D and stuff like that, but they had a reputation to maintain because, when you're 14 to 18, all you care about is your image. And, I work in a middle school setting, and I know, and even I remember as a middle schooler, how difficult it is, when you're in that process of finding yourself, and depending on the route you take, you can become alienated. And, if you have already built up that reputation, especially if you're like the star jock, or maybe you're the Chad, you don't want to be with those other guys. I mean, you see so many movies, from the 90s, like She's All That, or Love Don't Cost a Thing, where the nerd becomes cool and kind of abandons, the people who got him.
The clique, the original clique that were,
and realizing that the grass isn't greener, and that it's better to be themselves. And usually the girl or the Chad who remakes this girl, realized that who they were was fine all along. Urkel had to become Stefan, but ultimately Laura ended up choosing the nerd in the end.
Right. It's funny because, there's so many, the transformation of like a nerd from a female and a male, depending on the show and the movie, is so drastic to the way that they depict them, and the way they have the transformation that actually happen. I wanted to get your thoughts on this, and I know we may be speaking on a turn because, we're just two dudes, but, I was talking to Nicole about this, that, it's kind of, it's horrifying and crazy when you see what gamer girls kind of go through.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about gatekeeping that makes it so volatile. And like, look, I get it. The words, toxic masculinity, or I didn't even say it right, but like, the just being bad and being a bad influence and just constantly bringing people down. Like, I know it's overused, but it's true. Like, these people can't work without being harassed. And I just don't understand this gatekeeping of like, who are you to say who's a nerd or not? Isn't the whole point of being a nerd is that people were making fun of you and we're telling you you're not this, you're not that. You're doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, it's like you find your thing and you want to protect it so much. And so you become weary, especially if someone doesn't have the look. Like, oh, you're way too attractive to be.
Like, how is that a thing? Like, how so you have to be ugly? Like, are you then saying a requirement to be in fandom is to be ugly?
Like, just tell it on yourself.
Yeah. Like, wrestling has gotten better about it over the years, I think, because the internet and social media has made it this way. But, the fact that you have to pull your credentials and be like, oh, you're only a WWE fan. You've never been to an indie show where you have to go back behind the barn, but it's not in the barn. It's actually behind the barn because they couldn't afford to be in the barn.
Like, oh, you're a Metallica fan. Yeah. Name 5 of their songs while you're wearing their Target shirts.
Exactly. It's like, I knew this band before they got big. It's weird where they're just, and I think the video game industry kind of has this much more of a stick. It has this, I guess the best way to say it is they still have much more, I think, sour feelings, or like they're much more in their feelings. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but in this sense that video games are constantly being targeted from the government, from parents. Like it's a cycle, and it is something that's very personable, and it is something that it's video games are still really looked down upon, even though you see people making money on Twitch and on YouTube and at these Evos and all these other tournaments. The joke Joe Rogan has the most popular podcast in the world, and he's constantly dumping on video game players and on video games. And I can understand where there's a little gatekeeping. Where I don't understand, though, is it being vicious gatekeeping against people because they're too attractive or because they seem too cool. It's like the whole point is that video games are supposed to make it. The depiction should be the stereotypical nerd and the jock playing Mortal Kombat against each other, Madden, Final Fantasy. That's supposed to be what video games are supposed to do. That's literally the intention of them.
It should bring people together, but I might be speaking out of turn, and this is all just theory on my end. I think that the nerds, and this is like no shot at nerds because two nerds here ourselves. Even though we may not have the prototypical look, we identify with the community, but I believe like the certain type of nerds that we're speaking on. I think there's the fear that if people who are more attractive or better looking starts to come in their community, they get pushed back. And they become forgotten.
I can see that. But here's the funny thing, though. It's like everybody...
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's almost like a reverse, or it's almost like a different kind of cultural appropriation.
Sure. Okay. It's funny, though, because my thinking ends up being that we've all been denied. We've all had our heart broken. We've all been ostracized. Like, unless you're the 1% of the 1%, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. Not just when it comes to wealth, but like just the luckiest, the Ferris Bueller of your high school, for example. Unless you're that person, we've all had those shortcomings. We've all felt like we were left out. It happens. So I don't understand where it's like, first of all, we're all attractive to somebody. That's the truth. I know nobody ever wants to hear that, but it's like, man,
we're Stefan to some Laura.
To some Laura. Although Laura did, I'm not a Laura man.
I was a Myra guy.
My man. So
rest in peace.
So I think that's my big issue always when it comes to nerddom is the gatekeeping, because sports has it too. And again, I don't want to keep doing this drum, but like when you're actually in the industry and you realize like how people just are so condescending to women again when it comes to sports. Like we talk about fandom and nerddom. It's like now it's cool to be a nerd and know sabermetrics and fantasy football and to know all the true stats of an NBA game. What's 3 is worth more than 2. It's all mathematician now, right?
Yeah.
So nerds. The fact that a bunch of nerds running sports. So but yet they still we've seen it talk down to women. Talk down to minorities. Like, it still happens. It's weird. And we're only talking about this now because these are the stuff that happens in our communities that we think are all inviting and part of this culture. But, like, even within them, there's still these weird cliques.
Yeah. It just turns into, like, one big Spider-Man meme, because you find yourself becoming the thing that you hate. And that's something that's very common, not even just in the nerd community, but overall in society, where we have been trying so hard to go against the grain of one order of thinking and trying to create this new order of thinking, and we end up working ourselves into becoming the villain, where it's almost kind of like a double turn that happens, and but no, it's definitely still a problem, and I know we kind of skipped over the whole treatment of women earlier when we were talking about women in the nerds community, but I just had a brain fart.
Well, I'm kind of glad because it makes me want to go down this road a little bit of like the good and the bad of it. Like I think nerddom, the word that we're trademarking it's good. It does have, like, Star Trek fans could hang out with Star Trek fans, and you're not weird. I mean, for God's sake, shout out to all our furry friends. It's like there's furries now. Like, big conventions, like, there is something great about it. I think one thing that just hurts it is the weird capitalistic way that we've seen it be taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
Like, that, it's weird. And, it also goes to show the reason why I think there's a disconnect. It's like, okay, let's say that there is let's say, for example, a host. Mm-hmm. We've seen this with Aisha Taylor when she did the Game Awards.
Yeah.
Or she at E3, excuse me. It's like, that's somebody who's paid to go there to present to you. Like, they don't need to play every single Xbox game. I think the idea should be, we should be inviting, we should want everybody to be looking in on us. We want everybody to see the new Halo Infinite game. We want people to play the Final Fantasy remake. We want people to be going to WrestleMania. Like, it's all, because it makes it inviting. It makes everybody part of, like, the entire conversation, and it welcomes people in. And that's the thing about, like, women and minorities and nerddom, because there's so much that can be brought to the table. I think the one beautiful thing that has making pop culture and being a nerd kind of taking off is the idea that you're seeing for the culture stuff. Black Panther, Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse, Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel. Like, even if you don't like these things, all these little things add up to make better content, to make things more intriguing for everything.
Yeah, I think the part that's really heartbreaking about the fact that there's still this old way of thinking about how we look at women in those environments is that we grew up in an era where we were rich in pop culture. Like, we're 90s kids. And I think it's very undeniable, like, the impact of, like, the Chicago Bulls had on the lives of us. Whether you were just a casual sports fan or not, that team, like, got you into liking sports. Or, we grew up in the era of, like, Fox Kids. Yeah. So you had, like, you had a different variety of cartoons, whether it was, like, Batman or Bobby's World or the Power Rangers, the Mystic Knights of Tyrannogue. If you know, you know.
Shout out.
And it was programming that was made for everybody. And so, it wasn't like the 1980s. And, I know you had, like, your Thundercats and stuff like that, but we were rich in, like, game shows, cartoons, sports, music, whether, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of, like, boy bands and pop music and stuff like that. It was something that was there for everybody, to the point where it wasn't strictly, like, for guys.
Sure.
Or for girls.
Yeah.
It was like a universal kind of thing that brought people together. Even Attitude Era WWF.
There was a flavor for everybody.
It was a flavor for everybody. Even with as misogynistic as some of the content might be, you had a very strong figure in China.
Yeah.
Who was like the first woman to ever be in the Royal Rumble, the first female Intercontinental Champion, really being a pioneer in that arena. So you had something for everybody.
Lita and Trish eventually.
Lita and Trish.
Sexy and athletic, like badasses who also look great kicking your ass. Like, there was something to that.
And so one way or another, we all came up together, knowing this kind of stuff.
Think about it, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Like, you just start naming some of these things that started coming into the forefront.
Yeah, there was a list recently that was put out. I can't remember where it was put, but it talked about, like, the like top 10 movies that men would see and, like, top 10 movies that women are, like, fond of. And, like, Harry Potter was, like, 1 through 6.
Sure.
It was something that just resonated with women immediately. And, like, I've dated a few women who are, like, Harry Potter fanatics. It is their jam. I've seen Nicole's shrine.
Yeah.
Like,
legit shrine. Yeah.
Like, she can teach me some things.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and you'll learn how to, like, Levioso some shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I guess this is where I kind of want to go down this little bit of a route with you and see how you feel about it. Right? Is I think we were talking about spoil of riches. Okay. I think also a big thing is fandom, nerddom, nerdisms, whatever it is, at its best, it's an appreciation that you have for these content, for these people, for these creators, for all that, right? While you're doing that, you can criticize it. If you don't like an episode, if you want to state your opinion, that's what's great about it. I think where it becomes a problem is that we're too spoiled. We know too much. We know everything. We know how much these actors make. We know how much books are sold. We know how much. We just know everything about it. And we want what we want. How dare you have that ending of Game of Thrones? That's not the ending I wanted. How dare you have that at Loki episode 3? That's not the episode I want. It's like, it doesn't matter what it is. I think fans and the nerddom have almost become a little bit too much of a selfishness where it's you need to placate towards everything I am and not just allowing myself to enjoy the art that's being presented to me in all facets, whether it's the music. Like, how many times do you see an artist is like, this isn't what I want to hear from you? It's like, but they're the artist. Yeah. Let them make their art.
Yeah, like, they still have their lives to live, and they have experiences that they want to make songs about. And for you to try to tell them to just stay the way they are versus allowing them to grow, it's not fair. And you know what? I blame wrestling fans for this.
Ooh.
Okay, I blame our community because I feel like they kind of started it with the whole hijacking Monday Night Raws and stuff like that.
That's a great draft pick. I actually think it was Star Wars fans. And mind you, we're both. Like, we're both Star Wars fans. Like, you guys know if you watch The Good Brothers how much of a mark I am for Star Wars.
I grew up in a Star Trek household.
There you go. I mean, Everett, you could be my witness. There's a lot of Star Wars crap inside this office.
There is.
So, but we're bad. You know, we set ourselves up in fandom. We saw it all throughout WandaVision. We saw it all through Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We see it through everything where it's we make our own headcanon. And then when it doesn't happen, we just get so mad. And it's like, I get it. Some of your ideas are better than what we get. I'm 100% in agreement with that. That
Sometimes
is for sure.
it sucks.
Sometimes the fan fiction is horrible. You get Twilight. But, or 50 Shades of Grey, I should say, right? That's the fanfic that came from Twilight.
No, I think that's just in its own.
Let us know in the comment section below, or blow up his Twitter account to let him know that he was wrong. So, yeah, like
50 Shades of Grey don't have nothing to do with no vampires and lichens.
But I think she just made some weird fan fiction that came from it.
Maybe.
I think so.
I just know women are really into like softcore stuff.
I mean, you know.
But that's
I had HBO.
We don't want to talk out of turn here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak out of turn every once in a while when it comes to Nicole specifically, because So, I mean, to me, in that instance, though, I think that's where it gets a little interesting, is just the whole way that we digest it now.
Yeah.
And how we also see the behind the veil. For example, The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead has some vocal haters and lovers because it was so obvious what AMC started doing. So, like, I understand, and the same thing with WWE. It's like, you have every right to complain, but I also think there becomes a point where it's like, all right, now you're just complaining because you're spoiled, or are you complaining because it's a legit complaint to have?
Yeah.
Now, is nerddom changed? Like, is it no longer what it used to mean? Like, is being a nerd more just like being part of pop culture? Like, is there, what is a nerd? It's kind of bringing it back to how we started. What is a nerd?
Just someone who's passionate about a topic,
and that's
which
a fan.
Is why we, made the show that we made, because ultimately we are passionate about a lot of topics, and, we have knowledge and pseudo knowledge about, different areas, and there's a passion behind it, which would make us nerds. And then you have your fanatics, which to a degree we might be fanatical about certain things, but,
I mean, there's people fanatical about their health, like going to the gym and working out. Like, even if it's something healthy for you, like, things can get overboard, and things can be good for you too. Like, being a little fanatical about, making sure you're safe is, your safety when it comes to, like, knowing your CPR, knowing how to swim, like, things like that. That's important.
Or you can become a cult leader.
I mean, I've tried it once.
Andrew Keegan.
Okay. Well, that's your one. That's your one you got for this episode. So when we came up with this episode, like, you and I have been able to just kind of spew our guts, essentially, and just kind of talk about being a nerd and also seeing the frustrations of it, seeing the greatness of it. What do you think moving forward, the next 15, 20, 25 years, everything is going to be owned by 2 or 3 companies. Everybody's favorite thing is...
I feel like Demolition Man predicted this.
We're getting there.
We're getting close to the seashells.
So close to the seashells. Taco Bell, virtual reality, doing it. Oh, man, it's going to be wonderful times.
President Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, let's... only if Wesley Snipes is real. That's gonna be my favorite part about Demolition Man. So I used to get so excited to see my age, and we would be the same age as the grizzled cop that was a rookie when Sylvester Stallone. Yeah. I'm like, oh man! But what's funny is Sylvester Stallone was probably his age in real life when they were filming that movie. I'm like, that is so crazy how Sly has. But that's another thing though, right? Like, liking Sly Stallone used to just be like, you were a meathead who likes, but like now Sly is part of like nerd culture. It's like, you better know things about Rocky, better know things about Rambo.
Like, the fact that we just had a mini markout session over Demolition Man.
Oh, Demolition Man. Which is a total nerd movie.
Yeah.
Like, that is such a dork movie.
Don't even get me started on Judge Dredd.
Which one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I do lean more towards the Carl Urban one.
Okay. I mean, I guess, we have a few minutes. We could kind of just start nerding out a little bit. We could show you what nerding out is. If you're looking for...
Also, we're going to have to revisit this because...
Oh, this is going to be forever.
I do want to, like, dive in a little more on, like, the whole, like, masculinity and nerd thing, too.
If you want to, before we dive into that, let's talk a little bit about masculine nerd stuff now, which would be, like, RoboCop.
Yes.
Like, RoboCop. Remember RoboCop? Like, they made toys out of RoboCop. Mm-hmm. Aliens. They made toys out of that. Like Predator.
A Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's crazy. Schwarzenegger in itself, though, is much more of a, like, pop culture nerd dude. He's somebody who's complete mainstream. I guess that's it, right? That's the word that we've been just kind of circling around. Nerd. Being a nerd, nerdisms, nerddom, nerd kingdom, it's all just mainstream now.
Yeah. Let's
talk about the masculinity thing. I think this is a good place to kind of end it for the next time we start a new conversation. And thank you, everybody. Let us know your thoughts. I know we were kind of all over the place. This was an episode we were really excited about doing, and it was a really good introduction way to talk about how the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast kind of what our mindset is. Like, we love the community. We also, it's just being honest with you guys. That's why these episodes are the way they are is we want you to know. You spend so much time with us on your radio podcasting, and we spend so much time with the community. It's like this is who we are, and this is the community we're part of. And in some strange way, like Avatar, we're all part of it. We're all synchronized together. So with that, this is one of the things that, and I promise you, it seems like we're just burying, nerdisms, the nerd culture. We're not. It's just we're talking about it, and I promise
we're bringing it home.
Yes,
we promise. We're going to bring it all back together.
Promise. But I want to give you your chance. Let's kind of unfold this one for a few minutes.
Yeah. Well, I think going back to the reason why I wanted to hop into this topic was because there was this undertone, with Bobby Lashley's dig at Woods that because of what he was into, with the whole video games and the nerd culture, and he's very active in the cosplay community.
Yes.
That somehow those things make you less of a man.
Right.
That you aren't masculine.
So I guess we could spend a second on that. I know it's worth more than a second, but like, what is, masculine? What is the masculinity? Like, where does it, because I always feel, this is how I've always seen it, right? Is online. I know there's people who do it either to just troll or just for fun, just to bust balls. They like to make fun, right? But I tend to realize that in my life, more than often, people aren't getting in my face to talk trash to me.
Yeah.
So I wonder,
there's a safety to it.
But here's the thing. But this is where I'm coming from. It's I'm a nerd, and I don't get, I don't try to intimidate anybody, but I also never feel threatened by anybody. It's like where does this line of masculine, like, isn't it masculine that I wake up every morning to help provide for my family? That we do charity work, that we do community work, that we have good friendships, that we take care of our family and friends. Like, what do I need to be able? Do I have to show everybody that I could kick a little ass? Like, is that the point? Do I need to pretend like we're on an ice rink?
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. There needs to be this idea that you can handle your own if you were caught in a circumstance.
But even like, I hear this argument from Jim Cornette all the time, okay? It's talking about like it was a story on the Dark Side of the Ring about Too Cool Scorpio fighting, I believe it was Animal. Which one is Hawk? Animal had the son that played for Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Hawk. It was the one that had passed away first. And they got into a fight. And basically Jim Cornette's constant thing is like, no, this little guy's not going to beat this guy. And I always go back to how do you not watch real sports? Do you not watch that a welterweight can beat a heavyweight? Yeah. You're right. One catches the other one. More often, one can probably outlift it 100%. But when it comes to like judging the book by its cover, that's where it's the dumbest thing ever. And like Henry Cavill, Superman, right? The profile of like what you would think Superman would look.
Yeah.
Is on Twitter building a computer.
Yeah. Vin Diesel is an avid Dungeons and Dragons.
D&D. Joe Magliano, Magic Mike. That movie that everybody swoons over, great movie, by the way. But the first one, at least. D&D, Dungeon Master.
Yeah.
It's like this is all real.
You know, these people who I guess would embody the alpha male.
The alpha male. They're like, is Joe Rogan not a nerd for hunting and for archery? Like, is he not a nerd for that?
I would say so, but I guess that's also a masculine hobby.
Is it really? Because I've seen it at basketball games where little tiny purported women are able to bend backwards and do it with their feet. Doesn't seem like very masculine. It just seems kind of badassery.
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure once the new Hawkeye comes out,
Is that crazy?
Quite the discussion. Yeah.
Is that crazy? Like, yeah, the Hawkeye. Now everybody's gonna end up being a damn archer, but it's like, everybody's a nerd. Yeah, everybody's a nerd. Yeah. And but I hate, again, full circle of the gatekeeping. It's like, so don't let anybody judge you for what you're a nerd for. Don't judge anybody else either.
And it doesn't make you less of a man because of it.
No.
Are you gonna run up on Vin Diesel and call him a beta cuck for being a D&D master?
Is the nerd of The Rock being a absolute gym junkie? That's him being a nerd. He loves it. He knows the science of it.
But will still film himself singing "You're Welcome," for the 48th time with his
being a complete dork. Yeah. He's a complete dork.
But are you going to run up on him?
Tupac did poetry.
Yeah.
He knew how to dance.
Yeah. He was a ballet dancer.
You going to run up on Tupac?
It was, well,
I still say what I said. He's alive. Tupac, you can still run up on Tupac. He's alive. He's alive. Bro, he's alive at Cuba right now, right? There's a Ford Mustang that was in a picture, and it wasn't just a random black guy in Cuba, because that doesn't exist.
I don't know. I think the next episode might be the wildest conspiracy theories that you believe.
Oh, dude.
Tupac won.
Bruh, how much time do you got, man?
I know you don't have
I don't have time. I can't. That is so right. So thank you guys so much. This was a really fun episode, Everitt. I'm glad that this is a stopping point for us, because this is what I want to do now. Everybody, I know everybody's going to have their opinion. Some are going to be happy. Some are going to be mad. Let us know your thoughts about being a nerd, the mainstream part of it now, and kind of everything that's encompassed, your thoughts of it, how it has impacted you, whether you enjoy now being a labeled a nerd, whether that is even a term to be used nowadays. We are very interested in it, so we're going to tackle this issue again. We got some fun episodes coming up that we want to make sure we nail down, and then, when we get probably closer into when movie theaters are fully open and some of these things start coming back out, we'll retackle this issue.
Yes, we absolutely will.
What you been working on? What you got going on?
Right now I am on. Well, I've been on summer break for a while, but we just wrapped up summer school with our kiddos, and so I can finally breathe and relax, lose some more of this Rona weight. You and I were talking off the mic about some little programs to do. Other than that, radio stuff. 102.3 XLC. You can listen to me on weekends, Saturday nights, 6 p.m. to midnight. Sundays, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. I perform under the name of Bodhi, so that's Bodhi. You can follow me there on Instagram. Bodhi World Peace, no relation to Meta.
We still haven't found that out yet, by the way. We still don't know that.
We don't know.
We don't know that.
But other than that, man, I'm just relaxing. I'm taking things as it goes. July is a good month. That is the month I was born in, and we are approaching my Pippin year.
Let's go.
Who is not a very popular person right now. Well, he's popular for probably the wrong reasons right now.
I did an episode about that on Sports from the Couch that you could get on Roku now. We'll talk about that in a second.
Talk about a heel turn with him.
Oh,
but yeah, I'm just taking things easy. I'm thinking about maybe getting back into the dating game.
Ooh,
that's
going to be a subject matter, by the way. I haven't decided when that's going to be, but we're definitely going to be doing some type of a dating episode or some shit.
Yeah.
I think so. That'd be fun, right? Like if we talked about being a nerd for the last half an hour, we could for sure do a dating episode.
Yeah. So my DMs might become open soon, but I'm very happy, with the way things are going with the show. I'm very happy that we had this topic. Like if it wasn't for, commitments that you have, we probably could have
gone for another hour.
Yeah, we could have gone deeper down the rabbit hole. But ultimately, my intention was to make the case for nerds and to be pro nerds, and especially, when it comes to the depiction of men and nerds and the idea that you are less of a man if You have, certain things that you're fanatical about. And obviously I was thinking more in the old school way of the way nerds were depicted, because that's the way they were trying to look at Woods. But obviously we opened up a whole new portal, especially like when it comes to the way women are treated in the community as well. But ultimately, like, people should have the freedom to be whoever it is that they want to be, and to not seek permission from other folks for that. If it's making you happy and it's not causing you harm or anyone else around you, and it's ethical, then by all means do it. And if anyone has something to say about it, you just remind them that Justin Fields is the quarterback of the Chicago Bears, and they can't talk to you any kind of way.
I'm so glad not only that you finished up with those words that just sound so magical, but I'm glad that you first brought up this subject matter. I'm glad that you wanted to tackle the specific kind of area of what it means for a man and how we defined it. And more than anything, I'm glad that you allowed me to put up a mirror to myself and to the culture for, in order for us to enjoy it and to want people to be a part of it and for people to embrace us, we need to understand our faults.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. We have faults. And we know that every subgenre, every genre, every fan base has it.
It's the human condition.
Absolutely. So that's why, to me, it's like, this is why this was fun, because we talked about the good, we talked about the bad, we talked about where where it came from, how it was a good spirit, and how this isn't just one episode, how this isn't the end. This is what we think about our people, our kingdom. It's like, no, this is one of many conversations, and it's ever changing. Because as you notice, the Star Wars community was toxic. It's been kind of quiet right now. Because Mandalorian is really good. Bad Batch is really good. So it goes to show, it's like, you can complain, you can criticize, and want better product, but you don't have to be an ass about it.
Yeah.
And while that, you don't have to be disrespected because you like Kirby.
Yeah, maybe I might have a hot take of why people are quiet about not, the product of Star Wars, but we'll save that for another episode.
That is a professional radio tease, friends. That man right there. That's a pro. That's a pro move. Guys, you can follow me all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. You can be interactive with this show and all our other shows on the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. The big news, if you're following me on social media, Sports from the Couch is on Roku. The Rewind Sports 60 is now a partner with us, so that's some exciting news. Your boys are going up and doing some damn things, and for anybody who didn't, thank you, my brother. And the most exciting thing about it is obviously a little bit more exposure, but more than anything, nothing changes except bigger audience, and for us to be able to have better and more reaching when it comes to our fundraisers, our charities, and when we're doing little projects like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And like what we've been saying the whole episode, I'm excited to bring more people into our community. I'm all about letting people into our family. We got a bunch of bread to eat, so we want to make sure that we feed everybody. Yeah. So make sure you guys are joining us there.
We are a nerd community that is inclusive.
So, totally.
However it is that you look, if you are the stereotypical nerd, if you're the new nerd, I guess that's what we're going to dub them as, new nerds.
The new nerd.
We welcome you here. And Mike, I'm just really happy and excited for you, brother, with this new endeavor. Marvel and Disney, Warner Brothers and HBO, Mercado and Roku.
Yeah.
It's the Mercado-verse is expanding.
Right, let's just hope I don't WCW it up. Huh? Yeah. Thank you guys so much for the one and only. He is one half of the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast and 1/3 of the Trios Pop Culture Champions, Everitt O'Neill. I am Mike Mercado. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast. We will see you next time.